Up until this point, we've been looking at how to create relational database tables. In this lesson and the next, we'll be looking at how to retrieve and manipulate data in our databases. Now, in the previous lessons, whenever we wanted to perform any CRUD operations on our data, create, read, update, or delete, what we typically did was open up Visual Web Developer 2005 Express Edition. We got to the Database Explorer, navigated through, and until we found the table that we were looking for, right-clicked on it, and then selected something like Show the Table Data. And then we began to work with it in a very Excel spreadsheet type of format within the main area of our IDE. However, as we start to build our applications, there's really two ways that we will interact with data. And the first method is that we'll use ADO.NET's objects to retrieve, manipulate, and navigate through a table's rows and columns. And we'll highlight this in the last video in our series. But another method that we can use is actually the execution of special commands that are called SQL statements from within ADO.NET. We've already used the term SQL, or I think in one case I called it Transact SQL, several times up to this point in our lesson series. But what does that really mean? SQL stands for Structured Query Language, and it's a different kind of programming language in so much that it was created for a very specific purpose, and that is to allow you to retrieve, insert, update, and delete records from database tables. Now, SQL, or SQL as it's also pronounced, is a standard language across many different database vendors. However, Microsoft has added some functionality to standard SQL that provide a bunch of additional features that other database vendors can't or won't support. So sometimes when talking about the brand of SQL that Microsoft supports, you might hear the term T-SQL, or more commonly Transact SQL. But for our purposes, these are one and the same. So SQL is a very rich, robust programming language, giving you a lot of power and a tremendous number of options, but it doesn't look at all like Visual Basic or C#. Remember, it was created to solve a very specific problem, which is how to effectively retrieve data from relational database tables. So we're going to split up the topic matter into two videos. In this lesson, we're going to look at selecting data from a database, and in the next lesson, we'll focus on inserting, updating, and deleting data using SQL statements. Now, for our examples, we're going to need to get you set up so that you can follow along. There are two resources that you're going to need. First of all, we're going to be performing ad hoc queries, and an ad hoc query allows us to interact with the database without having to create an entire application. We can execute one or more statements directly from within a special tool that allows us to compose statements, execute them, and then view the results. And the data that gets returned back to us is in a tabular style format, which we can then save to a text file or to a spreadsheet or just copy to the Windows clipboard. But this is different than consuming the data in a Windows Forms application or a Web Forms application. Now, in those applications, we might format the data nicely and allow some sort of interactivity with the data so our users can interact in a safe sort of way. But in ad hoc queries, the data comes back rather plainly. But that's exactly what we want. We just want to quickly perform some operation or review some database values without the overhead of creating an entire application just for that purpose. So to facilitate this, we're going to need to install a companion tool to SQL Server 2005 Express Edition called SQL Server Management Studio Express. So among some of the administration and data management capabilities that this tool will give us, we're also going to be able to perform some ad hoc queries, which is really what we want to do. So what we'll need to do if we don't already have it installed is open up a web browser and go to http://msdn.microsoft.com/express. And once we get to the Express home pages, we'll go to the overview for SQL Server Express from the little pop-up menu, the DHTML menu on the left-hand side. And then we'll need to scroll down just a little ways, and currently you can see that under Free Management Tool that we can download SQL Server Management Studio Express. This will begin the download process, and I'll let their documentation give you instructions on how to install this on your computer. But if you've ever installed any software, it's pretty straightforward. Now, once you have this software up and running, the next thing that we want to do is install the sample database that I created, and the download for the sample database should be in either a zip file or a .msi file, and located from the same place where you downloaded this video. So once you've downloaded it to your hard drive, if it's a zip file, then you'll need to open it up, and then what we'll want to do is copy these two files into a folder of your hard drive. So we're going to open up All Programs, Accessories, Windows Explorer, and navigate to our computer, C drive. Now this happens to be where I installed the SQL Server Management Studio Express. We're going to go to Microsoft SQL Server, MSSQL.1, MSSQL, data. Okay. You can see there's already some sample databases here, but we're going to copy our own two databases from here and drop them into here. Okay, so that's step one. Let's close all that down. Then we're going to open up SQL Server Management Studio Express. Whenever we get this dialog, we'll go ahead and select Connect. And then we are going to expand the Databases node and right-click on Databases and select Attach. This will allow us to attach to an existing database. Optionally, we can create a brand new database from scratch. This time we're going to select Attach. It brings open the Attach Databases dialog. We'll select the Add button. And then it will give us a file dialog that will allow us to select the name of our database. In this particular case, we want to select mycompany.mdf and then click OK. You can see the My Company database details are listed here. We find both the MDF and the LDF files. And unfortunately, this screen wasn't meant to run at 800 by 600, so I'm going to have to kind of move it around a little bit here, and hopefully I can get to the OK button at the bottom. Great. So now you can see it listed under my databases in the Summary tab, and also under Databases within my Object Explorer. And as we open it up and take a look at our tables, we can see that we have 5 tables in our database. I created a diagram so that we can take a look at the relationship of these tables. Now, we're not going to talk about creating database diagrams in this series of videos. However, it's pretty easy to do, and it gives you an overview of all the relationships between our tables. Let's go ahead and size this a little bit smaller so we can see it all at one time. So we can see that we have, first of all, a customers table, and customers are related to orders. Each order can have one or more order items. Each order item is tied to a specific product, and each product is associated with a product type to qualify it. And this is, although a very simple table structure, it's very similar to other table structures that you're probably going to find or need to create for yourself. Now, there's nothing special about this. It's just a way for me to exercise the structured query language by selecting data from one or more tables. But I wanted you to be aware that there are 5 tables and that they are all related tables. If you're following along with me, I would recommend taking the time to go through each of the tables, right-clicking and selecting Open Table so that you can review the data that's contained within each of the tables and kind of look at the relationships. For example, how many orders would we expect, for example, Bill Brown, customer ID number 4, to have? Well, we can then go to our orders table and browse through all the customer IDs that are foreign key, have a foreign key relationship with the customer table. So here's one. You can see customer ID is 4. Here's another one, and so on.